Also, YouTube. You can find us there, Springfield's Talk 1041. If you missed any of the show, podcast available, Spotify, iTunes, all the places to find it. Very busy weekend. Of course, Donald Trump yesterday meeting with world leaders in Egypt and signing these agreements, and everyone was in a very good mood. Excuse me. I just, like many of you, I'm sure, you see the imagery of Trump there and all of these world leaders wanting to be by his side, and they're just gleeful. They're gleeful because of what has transpired due to Donald Trump. And then you pull up a video of Biden with European world leaders in which they're literally guiding him around. I mean, I know the comparison and contrast is something that one can do every single day. And some may say, well, why look at the past? Quit beating him up. He's not president any longer. But just what a different world. Can you imagine if Kamala Harris had won the presidency? These hostages would not be with their families. They may not even be alive at this point. In fact, you think about all of the opportunities that Democrats had if they had been successful in imprisoning Trump, trying to keep him off the ballot, trying to keep him tied up in everything that they tried to do to prevent him from being president. And if they had succeeded, none of this would have happened. Not to mention the 7 other countries that have signed peace agreements that don't get nearly the attention that they probably should, particularly some in which you're talking about tens of thousands of people slaughtered because of decades of fighting. I mean, these weren't little skirmishes. We're talking about some of these peace deals between countries that have gone on for decades, warring between the two, but clearly the attention to the Middle East because of the live hostages and the fact that virtually no one ever expected there to be peace in the Middle East. Sort of like that, what is that math problem? Isn't there some sort of math problem you hear about that no one's ever solved? And, some of the most brilliant minds have a crack at it. And of course, everyone hopes that they can, but ultimately they know that no one's ever going to do it. That was the approach when it came to peace in the Middle East, particularly regarding Israel. And here it's been done. I mean, these are just massive implications to that election. And to think if Kamala Harris had been president, which we're going to replay video, incidentally, of one of the hostages, not most recently released, but released earlier in the Trump administration, talking about how it was very clear Hamas was not happy Trump got elected, that they wanted Kamala Harris to get elected. Well, of course they did. This is also the observant disconnect of Democrats that are out there now, and we'll talk about this. Why are some of these Democrats praising Trump? I mean, he's Hitler on one hand, but we got to give him credit for saving the Jews. The same Democrats that call him Hitler are now out there acknowledging he deserves credit for this. What world must one's mind be in order for that to make sense? But they, at the same time, acknowledging that, deserves credit for this. Time Magazine. I mean, you should see Time Magazine. It's a photo of Trump that looks good. Looks like bold leadership, the visuals. And what is it titled? Let's see. It has the words on the cover. His triumph and the leader Israel needed. About Donald Trump. Time Magazine. But they'll still tell you, I still wish Kamala had won. Even knowing what that would mean. I think even the most cynical Democrats recognize, they may not verbalize it, but recognize there's no way Kamala Harris. I mean, it's just to even pretend as if that is some sort of possibility that Kamala Harris could have. I mean, everyone knows that that is not even in the realm of possibility. But think about that mindset when we're talking about the historic alteration to the landscape and the release of hostages alone. And if they had their choice, all that would be undone for Kamala Harris to be president. For what? What reason? Clearly not to make the world better, because they acknowledge that Trump is doing that. I would challenge those of you who hate Trump and like, Kamala should have won. For what purpose? Because Trump's evil? Because Trump's Hitler? Are you paying attention to what's going on? There could not be anyone more opposite, like the total complete opposite of Hitler than Donald Trump, literally. If you were to create some sort of little matrix, like, okay, who would be in the modern era living today the exact opposite of Adolf Hitler? It would be Donald Trump. You take the way that Jewish people felt about Hitler, you flip it over and have the opposite. That's how they feel about Donald Trump. Most popular leader for the Jewish people ever. Welcome to speak before the Knesset. Declared to be the single greatest ally of the Jewish people the White House has ever had. So why on earth would anyone? Well, but it still would have been better if, sure, a few more Jews would have been dead. But at least Trump wouldn't be in the White House. Is that really the perspective? Now, this is where we are actually seeing the divide reemerge between the Democrat establishment party and the Democrat activists, particularly the younger ones, they have no interest in pretending as if they are happy about this. The rhetorical question has been asked, and I've asked it as well, where are all those ceasefire people? Why aren't they celebrating? Well, it's because they never wanted a ceasefire. They want the Jews gone. They want to see finished what Hitler started. They recognize at the time a ceasefire under the direction of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and European allies at the time meant regrouping for Hamas. That was a ceasefire Hamas wanted. That was not a ceasefire that Hamas was being cornered into, feeling that they had no other option. That the pre-Trump ceasefire was a ceasefire that Hamas was calling for because it was to their advantage, which is why these left-wing activists and so many of these Democrats were holding up those ceasefire signs and showing up at different events calling for a ceasefire. See, the Trump ceasefire is different. That was not a ceasefire Hamas wanted. That was one they were backed into and felt they had no choice. That was a ceasefire. This is a ceasefire that is not part of the calculation of Hamas to finish what Hitler started. This is why the Democrat activists are not celebrating this ceasefire. It isn't simply because Trump did it. It's because this ceasefire is not a step towards the extermination of Jews. This is why we're hearing nothing, no celebration. Oh, incidentally, Trump has talked about supplying Ukraine with these Tomahawk missiles, long-range missiles, if Putin doesn't come to the table and bring this thing to a close. Now we will not only have we been able to observe the ceasefire people clam up when it comes to a ceasefire. Now, I suspect all of these people that have, we need to give Ukraine everything it needs. We need to give its way. If Trump steps up and gives them even greater capabilities in terms of military weapons to reach further into Russia, are we going to see these people celebrate and applaud him? Now, the answer to that, of course, is no. And that will be more about, well, because Trump is evil. And because Trump is doing it, we don't support it. The Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 417-447-KSGF. And now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 50. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 83. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 81.
You said Trump's not happy about the Time magazine cover?
No.
I thought it looked good. It's got him listed as the leader Israel needed. What did he say about it?
It was the photo.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't the verbiage on it. It was the photo. He said, Time magazine wrote a relatively good story about me, but the picture may be the worst of all time. They disappeared my hair, and then they had something floating on top of my head that looked like a floating crown, but an extremely small one. Really weird. I never liked taking pictures from underneath angles, but this is a super bad picture and deserves to be called out. What are they doing and why?
Now, I saw it, but I was more interested in the headline.
I mean, the headline was great.
Yeah, did you? But maybe I need to look at the picture again. I thought it was sort of him looking off into the... Maybe I saw it. Maybe I don't know. I just didn't get a very good look at it.
I mean, I think they were going for kind of like a historic, kind of stoic look.
Uh-huh.
But I do also see what he's saying.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll have to have another look at it. Oh. All right, well, let's, before we get into some of yesterday's stuff, approval ratings. Trump's second-term approval rating is greater than Obama's. That's got to sting. Let's see, Real Clear Politics tracking Trump's approval rating, comparing it to the approval rating of former Presidents Obama and Bush. Of course, Biden's not in there because this is talking about second term at this point within a second term. President Trump currently enjoys a higher average job approval number than both of his predecessors. As of today, Trump's average job approval rating is a pretty healthy 45.3%. On the same day, during his second term, Obama was 44.4%, and Bush was at 39.5%. So significantly higher than Bush. Slightly higher, just less than 1 percentage point higher than Obama. But, I mean, if you think about, well, two things. One, if you didn't know any better, all you did was watch the media, you would think that if you had been forced to guess, Obama probably had an 80% approval rating at this point in his administration, because the only people that didn't like him were clearly racist individuals. And everyone hates Donald Trump because he's destroying the world. Donald Trump is kidnapping families, separating them just for funsies, and then having them deported all over the place. In the middle of the night. Snatching them up. He's got a big gunny sack that he puts them in, and then he tiptoes off in the middle of the night, dumps them out somewhere across a border. And then, secondly, you think, given how much propaganda the media put behind Obama, where everything, I mean, this is a media that will still claim that Obama's administration was scandal-free. That he was just the greatest president we've ever had. I mean, it was constant, non-stop propaganda. And then for Trump, clearly the flip side. And even with all of that, Trump still has a higher approval average than Obama did at this time during his presidency. That's pretty remarkable. Can you imagine what it would look like if the media were honest? Can you imagine how much further we could... You think about the things that Trump has accomplished. Imagine if his number one obstacle to success for the American people wasn't the Democrat Party and the media. If those institutions could agree on things like, less crime is good. Siding with law-abiding citizens over the criminals is a good thing. Kids shouldn't get life-altering cosmetic surgery in the name of sex change operations. Girls should not take a back seat to boys when boys want to compete against them in sports or take showers with them or use the same bathroom, that we should protect girls' rights. These are all things that once upon a time, incidentally, there wasn't a disagreement on. Both parties, these were areas that everyone could agree. But over time, the Democrat Party has decided to abandon those values and instead take the opposite approach. Can you imagine if they hadn't done that? I'm not saying throw ticker tape parades for Trump and agree with everything he does. We don't need that. But if they just behaved in the way they did 30 years ago, where normal common sense things they supported, they're like, well, of course we support that. How much better off everything would be? How sad it is to see so many people in so many positions of power, media, elected officials, judges, proactively try to derail what, and these are the 80-20 issues, where you have 80% of Americans on the same page. There was the event in Egypt to sign the deal with all of these Middle East leaders, and there were world leaders from all over the place. One of the individuals that was there was Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney. And I'm not going to play the audio for you because you can't really tell the audio. And the visuals are almost as much, perhaps even more important. And they're standing there, and everybody's milling around, enjoying. All the flags are in the background, the podium's there, hot mic. And Carney makes his way up to Trump. Have you seen this video?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's really good. And so apparently Trump, when he referred to him, did not refer to him as prime minister, but accidentally said President Carney. And so Carney came up to him afterwards, and while everyone's milling around, and said that he joked with Trump, I'm glad you upgraded me to president. And Trump, he was like, oh, did I? He's like, oh, he didn't realize he did it. And then he sort of held his hand over his mouth so the mic wouldn't pick it up and joked back, at least I didn't say governor. And Carney laughed, but it was the look on Trump's face when he said it almost made that entire history of back and forth seem like a frenemy thing. When Trump said it to him, it was like an inside joke. You could see it on his face. He's like, oh, hey, at least I didn't say governor, and they both laughed about it. Remember during World War II how all the world leaders treated Hitler like that? Oh, no, wait, that's not how it played out, was it? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. And we are going to get a traffic update. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. Then just a bit of audio. Yesterday reaction to the historic deal and release of those hostages, including audio from a hostage that had actually been released a bit after Trump got sworn into office. And during an interview talking about the remarkable difference in treatment they received, or at least he received, from the terrorist after Trump was elected president, and it became clear to him that it was clear to Hamas their days of holding those hostages were soon to be over because Trump was going to back them into some sort of corner in which they had to come up with, or they had to agree to a deal. And so they started treating them nicely. They're like, oh, new sheriff in town. Hey, let's lighten up just a little bit here. So we've got that audio as well. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 60. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 83. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 81.
If you need the absolute best when it comes to home buying, home selling, you got her. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, right here in the 417. There are more realtors out there than there are homes on the market right now, which is an incredible thing to think about. Not all are the same by any stretch. She was with us on Friday just talking about how pretty much, I mean, anyone, if you take the test, $500, you got your license. And a lot of people do it as a side gig. They think, oh, I'll sell a house once a month, make a little walking around money as commission, supplement my income. But you're clearly not going to get the sort of experience you get from someone who does it full time, has a passion for it, and learns from their own experiences. When you're doing it all of the time, I think she said she had 7 closings one week recently. That is just an insane amount. But you listen to the reviews, and everyone who utilizes her feels as if they are her number one client and priority. If you've ever bought a home or sold a home in the past, you understand what it means to have that sort of experience. So for any home buying, home selling needs, cannot recommend highly enough Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. Peace in the middle. Some of your Pyramid Roofing Company text messages. Peace in the Middle East. Worst Hitler ever. Sarcasm, yes. He is. We can list the areas that he fails. So if anyone ever asks you, I bet you can't even list anything about Trump that you think he failed at. Well, he's a horrible racist. Going so far as to use the National Guard in order to allow the poorer, a.k.a. black neighborhoods in cities like Washington, D.C. have the same quality of life as the rich, white, liberal neighborhoods do. He's the worst Hitler ever, as we've seen this play out in the Middle East. I mean, there are quite a few things that he has failed in grand fashion. Another asking, wondering if news of peace will calm down the No King marcher clowns. No, it will not. These people are, they chant the same slogans. All one must do in order to recognize what's going on or not going on upstairs with these folks is just watch or go yourself. Just ask them very basic questions. The very basic, fundamental questions. If you've not done this before, there are a number of people online who do this, and they do it to prove a point. By allowing these No Kings people, the conspiracy theory, Project 2025 people, so that they essentially prove the point themselves. And that is they have no idea what they're talking about. It's incredible to me these people are so emotionally activated that they will go to a place to protest as somebody that they expect the world to listen to, yet don't even bother learning the very basics of what it is that they speak of. We're not talking about gotcha questions in order to, ask some really obscure question that even people who are well versed in the issue at hand would probably have a difficult time knowing the answer or be like, well, I don't really know about that part. That's pretty nuanced. These are just basic fundamental questions. And then, it's, you know what? I'm done talking to you. Oh, okay. Clearly. Somewhat to that point, we were talking about what is a really funny moment. And it's a moment of just lightheartedness because of the nature of things that have been occurring due to Trump. And it was during the signing of this peace agreement in Egypt, and up at the podium was standing Donald Trump, wrapping things up, and everybody's kind of milling around, and he had referred to Prime Minister Carney as President Carney. And so Carney comes up to him of Canada and jokes, hey, thanks for the promotion to president. And then Trump, he's like, oh, I called you president, and he kind of laughed, and he said, hey, at least I didn't call you governor, obviously joking about the 51st state issue. And it was a funny moment. Sarah found a headline that was something along the lines of Prime Minister Carney has to correct the record with Trump suffering from memory problem or something like that, right?
His senior moment.
His senior moment. Now, you think about, of course, it's typical, right? Well, we've got to pretend as if this is Trump, and he just to demonstrate that he's not all there. He clearly has cognitive issues. This is in the context of him being solely responsible for bringing virtually the entire world together and doing something that no previous world leader, aside from President of the United States, any world leader has ever been able to do. In that context, you still have some in the media trying to convince you that he's just not mentally capable to even function as president. Well, what does that say about his predecessors, given the success record? There was, and this isn't new audio. I actually played this audio at the time, and it is a former hostage. This hostage, not one of the 20 that was just released, but released sometime after Trump was sworn in as president of the United States, talking about Hamas and their reaction to Trump winning the presidency.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before, we felt like nothing is happening, you know? And I remember for me, ever since he came into the road, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted...
Who?
Terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. Yeah. So immediately the way they treated me changed. So if it's the amount of food, I could say this, that when Trump became president, yeah, the way they treated us changed. For me, personally, this is what I
think
felt.
because they anticipated that a deal would come soon.
Yeah.
And that's when they started giving you more food.
Exactly. More food, treated me better, stopped cursing me, stopped spitting on me.
Now, the latter aspect of that requires the understanding of something that I was making a point on earlier in the program, and that there's the pre-Trump ceasefire deal and then the post-Trump ceasefire deal. And some people may say, well, they thought Trump was going to give in and give that, a deal. No. You see, the pre-Trump ceasefire deals were deals Hamas wanted. That's why they were calling for them. That's why their supporters, their Democrat activists, were all over university campuses and storming the Capitol and showing up at Kamala Harris book events, which, by the way, is still happening, screaming at her about supporting a ceasefire. This ceasefire is different. This is one they knew that they would be backed into and have no choice. Hence, the treatment of the hostages in a nicer manner. This is not behavior of a Hamas that recognized that they were in control. It is a fearful Hamas. And the fact that they were immediately, or at least this one hostage, and I suspect others, experienced the same mood shift of Hamas once Trump got elected president. They realized, okay, we are no longer in charge. You think about the presentation of Donald Trump and how often we were told that, well, dictators like Trump because he's one of them. You think, however, about the reality, whom it is in this world we've learned supported which candidate. Here you hear that the conventional wisdom amongst Hamas during that campaign was the need for Kamala Harris to be president of the United States for reasons we're watching play out. What does that tell us? We also know that the communist Chinese were desperate to make sure Joe Biden was elected president, and then Kamala Harris. Same thing with Iran. You're talking about China, country that has concentration camps and uses modern-day slavery. The Iranians, number one exporter of terrorism in the world, and which side were they on? even when Biden was vice president. Bin Laden's assassination plot to take out Obama, and there were a number of officials. It wasn't just Obama. There were a number of officials that were on the target list to take out by bin Laden, except for the vice president, Joe Biden. And bin Laden explained in his writings to little sleeper cell heads that we want Joe Biden in the presidency because he will do to the United States what we failed to do, and that is destroy it. That's bin Laden's perspective. What I mean, I don't know how much more clear it can be that in modern history, and this is available knowledge, this isn't speculation. These are things that we know. When we're talking about people or countries that are our enemies, people or countries that want to see the full destruction of the United States of America, there is a consistent backing of Obama, of Biden, of Kamala, of Democrat leadership. And fear of someone like Donald Trump. What does that tell us? Now, many of us know. But there will be many of the no kings protesters, the conspiracy theory-driven Project 2025 protesters that not only don't care about that sort of thing, but probably don't even know it. They probably have no clue that China and Iran and Hamas and bin Laden actively participated in efforts in their own right, in their own ways, to make sure people like Obama and Biden were president and Kamala Harris would be president and Donald Trump would not. Those are the bedfellows. And some of you who hate Trump and continue to vote for people like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, maybe just a moment of self-reflection there when you look to your left and look to your right and you start to recognize the sorts of people that are backing those individuals and wonder why. Self-reflection. Self-awareness. There's some audio I want to play coming up from The View that I can only imagine is going to come back to haunt one of the hosts regarding what she said she would do if Donald Trump managed to get these hostages released, which, of course, he did. couple bits of audio. This is back in January. Alyssa Farah Griffin, one of the hosts of The View, regarding Trump and what he had said. Hey, we're going to work on this, get this thing wrapped up, get these hostages released.
My point when I say I'm not going to be apocalyptic, it's not changing a tune. It's not making every single thing a 5-alarm fire. Yeah. If he does good, if he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you for doing it. Yeah. She'll knock it right off my head.
Well, let's see if that happens. And I don't want to be a nitpicker here, but the way she worded that, I don't know, sounded like the entire show. Not just put it on for a segment. Not just put it on quickly and then have Joy Behar say, okay, that's enough. He got enough. All right, you did what you said you would do. Take it off. I can't stand to see it anymore. No. It sounds to me like, I don't know, the way she worded it sounded like the whole show.
My point when I say I'm not going to be apocalyptic, it's not changing a tune. It's not making every single thing a 5-alarm fire. Yeah. If he does good, if he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you for doing it. Yep. Yeah. She'll knock it right off my head.
She said, I'll wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show. I think it's fair to take from that she meant the entire show. We'll see if she does it. Dem strategist. And listen, I could play all day these Democrats admitting that Trump deserves credit for this. So I'll just play one. Dan Turrentine, regular contributor on Mark Halperin's two-way program, this during the broadcast yesterday.
I was struck just by the arc, thinking about the arc of Donald Trump's 10 years. And just all the ups and downs and where he was just a few years ago, the unconventional nature of kind of how he operates, the personnel around him. You know, we hold him to account rightfully when they err, but this is an instance where it spectacularly worked, and It's historic, and he deserves all the credit and basking in everything today. You tip your hat to him.
I know it's almost unsettling to hear people on the left give him the credit that is due. I do believe for some that they're more strategists, not those that are actual politicians, that they may be genuine in this. They may see it as a one-off, he got lucky, but still he managed to do it. I believe some of which, I've got to get to this one coming up here. For a lot of them, it's just silence. And those that feel they have to acknowledge it, I imagine their thinking is, we just can't fight this one. Let's just get it over with, pull the Band-Aid off, give them credit, move on. Plus, who knows, the whole thing could fall apart, and in 6 months, we can say, see, we told you so. Trump failed. He doesn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, and rewrite the history and portray it as if nothing positive came out of those first steps. Springfield's talk, I've got to share with you, Elizabeth Warren made a post about it, and then J.D. Vance burned her back so hilariously bad. I'll share that next. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live. Did I already mention the streaming live
You
part?
already
Okay.
did.
I was trying to...
I know, you're trying to fill for me, and I appreciate this.
Stretch there for you just a bit. Elizabeth Warren posted this in response to the agreement Trump orchestrated for the release of the hostages. For 2 excruciating years, I have called for the return of the hostages brutally kidnapped on October 7th and held in Gaza. Today is a good day. Surviving Israeli hostages are finally home and reuniting with loved ones. I'm thinking of them and their families on this joyful day and praying for their full recovery. I'm also grieving for all of those who can't come home today. Today must also be an important step towards lasting peace in the region, peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. We must end the war in Gaza, surge humanitarian aid, and negotiate a 2-state solution now. To which J.D. Vance posted the following response. The president told me he did this on Indigenous People Day in honor of you. I mean, these people are so good. So good in that White House of these responses. It does have that, it reminds me a bit of when, it's different but the same. The virtue signaling, the doing nothing but feeling you're doing something. Like, I've called for this for 2 years. Oh, you called for it for 2 years? Well, you know what? You deserve some of the credit then. It reminds me of when those Christian girls were kidnapped and being held by I forget whatever that terrorist organization was, and Michelle Obama held up a sign with a sad face and said, release them, release the girls, or so, and it made headlines. Oh, Michelle Obama has weighed in. You made a sign, and it did nothing. Nothing whatsoever. This is, of course, the left, and how appropriate is Elizabeth Warren's demonstration here of her contribution to all of this? The fact that she says, well, I for 2 years have been posting things and calling for this to come to an end, and so I'm glad that everyone finally listened to me. Because is that not the approach of the left? Virtue signaling, talking a lot, but doing nothing. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. How about a quick rundown on some of the great rebates on new Hondas this month at Pinnaker Honda? So rebates, new Accords, $2,000 rebate, new CRVs, $1,000 rebate, Civics, $1,500 rebate, and new Pilots, $1,000 rebate, plus low monthly payments. Now, the 26 CRV as low as $448 a month, plus that $1,000 loyalty offer. The 2025 Accord, $388 a month, plus $2,000 loyalty offer. The 25 Civic hatchback as low as $299 a month. And the 26 HRV as low as $299 a month. And, of course, all sorts of different stipulations apply. You can get all of that information by visiting their site or stopping by. And there is the Honda True Certified Dream Deal Sales Event, rates as low as 0.99% on select 2020 to 2023 models. And then the Pinnaker Advantage, 20% off routine maintenance when you buy a Honda at Pinnaker Honda. So all incredible reasons. A listing of some of the reasons that I recommend the Pinnaker family and Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Now, there are some Democrat activists that are openly unhappy about the peace deal, the ceasefire, the hostage releases. And that is because they have never been about a ceasefire. They have never been about a peaceful solution. They have been about the elimination of the Jews. And they're demonstrating that. One of the organizations, the Democratic Socialist of America, which is the organization backing Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat candidate for governor of New York, who says that he supports global jihad, they have denounced the conditional ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, calling for continued resistance against the Jewish state, which, of course, they've been very clear for some time what it's about. That is eliminating the Jewish state, finishing what Hitler started. And so they are openly opposed to this. And, if on September 12th, 2001, someone came from the future and said, hey, just so everyone knows, there's going to be a foreigner elected mayor who openly declares his support for global jihad and is supported by people who are against peace in the Middle East, it would have been believed by those who believed it to be true that somehow we had lost a war against someone, had been completely taken over. I suppose it's somewhat appropriate, and I'll go back to the fact that bin Laden's plot to assassinate Obama was part of a larger plan to make Joe Biden president of the United States, believing that he would destroy the country. He would do what hitting the towers in the Pentagon would not do, or was unsuccessful in doing, and that is bringing the country down because of his liberal policies. Well, look at what the people of New York are going to do. I mean, bin Laden in his wildest dreams. See, he thought in order to get someone so destructive in office, you had to assassinate Obama. That because he apparently never crossed his mind that the American people would even think of that as an option. But if he were alive today to see Mamdani, a guy that is supportive of global jihad, and that the people, the citizens of New York, are going to elect the guy? Talk about not learning your lesson. Anti-Israel protesters briefly succeeded in driving Democratic New York Representative Josh Riley out of his own town hall event on October 6th, the day before the 2-year anniversary of the attack. Riley, a freshman lawmaker representing a sprawling swing district in upstate New York, was heckled nearly 6 minutes straight over his support for Israel and refused to label the country's war against Hamas as genocide. The congressman ultimately left the room while a vocal female protester exited the venue before proceeding with the town hall event. The explosive scene came as support for Israel has plummeted among Democrats And lawmakers are under pressure from the party's Democrat activists to take a hard line against the country's conflict with Gaza. And one of the women yelling, 75% of Democrat voters are against you, the United States giving arms to Israel. A gray-haired woman stood up and shouted, why are you voting for arms for Israel? People are dying. Americans do not want you to support the genocide. So forth and so forth. Then you have, and that's a Democrat lawmaker. This shows that you can never be left enough. You can never be psychotic enough. You can never be anti-Semitic enough. Kamala Harris's book tour continues to go off the rails at increasingly her events. Anti-Semitic Democrat activists show up screaming at her for being responsible for the genocide taking place in Israel, in Gaza, rather. This past Saturday, she was in Chicago to speak with journalist Michelle Norris about her book and presidential run when several pro-Hamas hecklers started shouting at Harris for, quote, supporting genocide in Gaza. The woman saying, your legacy is genocide. This is what you did. You paved the way for everything that is currently going on. Another protester was recorded standing up and shouting that Harris is a war criminal before a male heckler cried out that her, quote, legacy is genocide. Now, what I think is just, this is so incredible. And it is also an example of what happens when you try to cater to the extreme left. You're never left enough. So here, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were helping assist Hamas in their efforts. Now, people can argue over whether it was deliberate or not. But as we aired audio of one of the hostages earlier talking about how Hamas wanted Kamala Harris to win the presidency. They were supporters of hers. And Hamas only supports things that they believe are supportive of them. So here is Kamala Harris, who is out there helping spread disinformation about the Jews in Israel and how they're responsible for genocide. She uses the talking points of Hamas, does everything that a good left-winger is supposed to do. And what does she get for it? She can't even do a book event without those same people screaming at her, blaming her for not doing enough for Hamas. Part of what really drives the left nuts, and in fact, Kamala at a previous event, it was another book signing, I think it was in Manhattan a few months back, and it was a similar situation, and Kamala Harris hollered back, you know, I'm not the president of the United States, and which I thought was hilarious. Everyone applauded. They were applauding because they felt she was really sticking to the protester. But to me, I found it humorous that they're applauding her declaration that she's not president of the United States. But she writes about in her book the frustration that she has with these people that they weren't protesting Republicans. They weren't going to Donald Trump events. They were going to events that were centered around Democrats, and this was frustrating to her. Well, this is the left. This is how they behave, but also because they understood, this is one of the results of strong leadership, they understood that there is no point in protesting Trump. There is no point in protesting Republicans because they know that Republicans and the Trump administration is not going to budge on their support for Israel. They target the weak ones. They target those, and they have targeted those that they felt they could gain ground with. And that's why they targeted the Kamala Harrises and the Joe Biden and all these Democrat members of Congress. Because they know whom it is amongst us that is most likely to come over to their side. This is a woman, again, Kamala Harris, that wouldn't pick the no-brainer of a vice president, Shapiro, because he was Jewish. So as frustrated and confused as the brilliant mind of Kamala Harris may have been, that they weren't protesting what Kamala Harris, in her mind, hey guys, we're kind of meeting you halfway on this thing. We're out there pushing the Hamas talking points. We're calling for Israel to be held accountable. We're using all of these inflated numbers to make Israel look bad. Meanwhile, Trump is like, he's very. Why are you not protesting him? Because they know. They know who ultimately is on their side, and they recognize that the Kamala Harrises and the Democrats of the world are trying to walk, or have been trying to walk, this middle line for political purposes. So the political marketing component of it is something that they recognize they may be able to get them to budge on, and that is show up screaming, protesting, because they know that can have an impact on how far to the left they will allow themselves to go. But again, just ultimately, it demonstrates it does not matter how far to the left, how much support and aid you give to Hamas. It is never enough for the left. And the fact that these individuals keep showing up at places like Kamala Harris, book signings, shows that this is who they are. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 60. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 83. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 81.
Yesterday, we talked a bit about Columbus Day and the absurdity of renaming it Indigenous People Day, and largely because of the reasons behind it. And for those that aren't familiar, in a virtue signaling effort, many people on the extreme left have said, well, we should not celebrate Columbus Day because he was a mean guy and he involved himself in slavery and the killing of people. And so we are going to instead replace Columbus Day with Indigenous People Day. Well, Indigenous people were slave traders hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus. Slave traders, not just slave owners. And there are entire tribes that would go extinct because one decided to commit genocide against the other. This doesn't mean that the descendants of those people today are bad people or owe anybody anything. That's not how real life works, nor should it. But the level of stupidity and ignorance of trying to make a point that Christopher Columbus was a bad guy by replacing him with people that, quite frankly, if Christopher Columbus was Poltergeist, then Indigenous people would be Saws 1 through 6. That being said, Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota posted a tribute to Native American Day on X yesterday in an attempt to acknowledge their contribution to the United States, saying, quote, "Today we celebrate Native American Day. I'm proud to join South Dakotans in honoring the heritage and contributions of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people," he said in the post. Of course, he was mocked widely for it. Widely, I should say. I'm going to read this to you just because this is PG-13, but Raheem Kassam, he's a prominent political figure. His posted response in all caps on X was, "It's Columbus Day and John Thune is a bitch." That was his response to it. Another saying, "You don't deserve to govern here. It's Columbus Day." I can't read through some of these. I already probably I crossed into the PG-13 realm here, but some of the verbiage that's used probably isn't the best in order to make the point, but it is exhausting. And Republicans, Democrats, we expect this sort of thing from. And it isn't to say that people who are of the Nakota, the Coda, a whole listing of Coda tribes in South Dakota don't deserve recognition and don't deserve honor and, don't deserve to be spoken of. But when you're doing it in place of Columbus Day as a point of virtue signaling, you're doing it all wrong. And it perpetuates the disinformation and the rewriting of history. We talk about whitewashing. You want to talk about whitewashing history? Rewriting it in order to make certain people look as if their history is much different than it actually was. I don't know if there is a segment historically of our population that has gotten a better rewrite than some of the indigenous people tribes. And many of us even growing up, it's all portrayed as they were all just the same. That's another thing, lumping them all together as if they were all exactly the same. All of these Native Americans, these indigenous people, and they just wanted peace and to, just get along with everyone. That's all that they did. For the culture, the genocide, the torture, the slave trading that so many of these tribes were responsible for. And the way that history is actually portrayed, I don't know if there is such a widely accepted massive detachment from actual history as the way that we portray that part of history. There may be. I'm just saying I can't think of one. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks elder law. Keeping the family farm is important. I've focused on that quite a bit since Farm Fest, as Ozark elder law is out there every year. Because too often when it comes to the need to pay for assisted living, nursing homes, folks get told, well, you're too rich. You got all that land. You better sell that off. Ozark Elder Law can help you if you plan far enough in advance. It can help you not have to do that. There are 5 ways to pay for nursing homes. Every day that goes by diminishes the likelihood. It's 5, it's 4, it's 3, it's 2, and you may unfortunately get to the point where there is no way to pay for the nursing homes. We assume because we don't see elderly people panhandling at intersections that means that somehow it always gets paid for and taken care of, but that's not reality. What's it going to look like for you? What's it going to look like for your family? That's what Ozarks Elder Law can help you determine way ahead of time. You need to make sure you do it now, not later. 10 area locations. The consultation is a courtesy. And you'll know up front what it costs in order to make sure you're prepared. And they do, all the other important stuff as well. Power of attorney, wills, stuff that you don't want to just download some form from the internet thinking you're secure and have it done properly. It doesn't work that way. Be nice, but it's not reality. OzarksElderLaw.com. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. All right, I'm going to go into this coming up here after traffic update. Ozark Junior High launches behavior score for students to reward good conduct.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 60. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 83. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 81. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, as we move into the fall and winter months, there is kind of that common misconception that you can't get a new roof install. And Josh, he was with us on Friday, and he talked about new roof installations during the fall and winter months. And not only can they do it, but it's sometimes the best time to do it because oftentimes you will have a shorter wait time, and oftentimes you can also get a discount as well. So if you have been putting it off, thinking, maybe we should wait until spring, now may actually be the best time for you. Now, the Pyramid team, they are currently about a week out on roof inspections, and they are about 3 weeks out on new roof installs. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home for that free roof inspection, make sure that you reach out today. And of course, you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Springfield News Leader piece here. Ozark Junior High launches behavior score for students to reward good conduct. Ozark Junior High students not just graded on academic performance. Starting this year, they also receive a score for their behavior. The district in Christian County piloting a new program called ROAR. Responsible, ownership, aware, respect, to reinforce and reward good behavior. Separate from academic letter grades, the nearly 1,000 students in grades 7 through 8 can earn a simple score up to 4 points based on how they show the desired ROAR traits at school. A 4 means that they are consistently meeting expectations. Anything lower means there's room to improve. Superintendent Lori Wilson said the innovative approach, which was discussed in meetings during the summer and fine-tuned with teacher feedback in August, was launched in early September. She said the desired traits are in line with the district's portrait of a graduate, a set of skills and knowledge the district wants students to achieve by the end of their senior year. Quote, "We want our students to be resilient, to be reliable, to be great learners. This allows them to meet those goals in the portrait of a graduate, to know that they have to take responsibility. It's a way we're trying to make sure all of our students understand our expectations and meet them in a positive manner. The ROAR score, updated every couple of weeks, offers a framework for teachers to provide feedback so students and their families know where more work is needed. It does not directly impact their grades in specific courses. It is not a grade," Wilson said. It is separate. By tracking behavior, the district hopes students will reflect on their choices. I went to College of the Ozarks, and you had an academic score from your grade and then a work score, she said. I sort of equate this as a work score. How is your participation? How are you functioning in class? Are you getting things turned in on time? Amanda Suter, principal of Ozark Junior High, said most students consistently make good decisions and behave, but the small percentage that do not require a lot of time and energy from the adults in that building. The thought behind it is, let's start to recognize and put a lot of time into the 90% of kids who are doing it right and see if that kind of bleeds into the 10%, she said. Suter said the idea, introduced earlier this year, was to help teachers look for and reward positive behavior in students instead of responding to the bad choices that sometimes junior high students make. Every single teacher in every single class gives a ROAR score. Students have 7 classes, so they get a ROAR score for each class. Throughout the day, students who display the expected behaviors can receive a coin that results in an immediate prize and enters them into a drawing for a larger prize given out quarterly. She said if a student falls short, perhaps by talking while the teacher is talking, the teacher will enter a comment into an online portal where parents can access academic grades and the ROAR score. Quote, "It's an easy one-click place for parents to be told about their grades and to be told about the behavior in every single class." Now, just some thoughts on this. And I feel like this is the sort of thing many of you will have thoughts on as well, because it deals with education. And one of the reasons so many of us have thoughts on education is because the vast majority of us have gone through the public education system or a private education system. There are some homeschool, some that have done both, but education is something that we've all really been subject to. The reference to this is innovative. This is essentially what China's been doing for some time with their social credit system, in which you have, and many of you are familiar with this, but if you're not, it's something that China's Communist State Council put into place to reinforce good behavior among citizens by giving scoring systems. And it's called the social credit score, and it works similar to your actual credit score. The government decides how it is that they find it pleasing for you to behave, and then they score you, and based on that scoring, you get either rewarded or you have those certain rewards taken away from you. This isn't innovative. Trying to control people's behavior through these sorts of systems really isn't anything new. Now, it may be new in the context of American public schools and having a simplistic 1, 2, 3, 4 rating system that then allows you to receive prizes and praise or to have those things taken away from you. But this isn't anything really that new. Listen, on one hand, I get and understand this recognition that there are discipline issues in schools, but it just seems like the go-to is always this sort of Rube Goldberg approach, taking something that really doesn't have to be that complicated and creating this system. We've got 7 classes and 1 through 4, and if you get this many, you get a coin, and if you get a coin, you can turn it in for this, and if you do this, then this happens, and then you do this over here, and then parents can log on, username and password, and don't forget it, and you can log in, and it's all very, very simple. And I'm not saying it's the most complicated thing in the world, but for Pete's sakes, why does every answer that is government involved, an answer that requires making things more complicated than it was once upon a time? When it comes to everything outside of government, it's about how can we do things more efficiently? How can we simplify things? But when it comes to government, well, we've got to set up this system, and we've got to have a rating system, and we got to plug this in, and we're going to have a matrix over here. And by the way, this is going to save time. This is going to be, it's going to make everything so much better. Government involvement in medicine, a large part of what has become the destruction of our medical industry in the United States is because of Obamacare. It's just all of the data stuff, all of the requirements, and you got to plug this information in, and then you got to plug that, and everything has a rating code, and people are reduced to numbers and ratings, and there's just something about it. Behavior is a human thing. And it seems as if government, when dealing with human beings, so often wants to reduce it down to just like these rating systems that you can, and then that's how you're judged as to whether you're successful or not, based off of the numbers. It's so, to me, Orwellian. It's so Soviet era. I mean, they're doing it in China right now. It just doesn't, it seems to like suck humanity out of people being human beings when you just slap numbers and you give little tokens if you act like, it's like giving a reward, training a dog how to do tricks. And I don't mean to be harsh, and I'm sure the motivation is, great. Oh, I'm sure there have been all sorts of studies by experts that say this is the best way to go about it. You just have to make it more complicated than the good old days of, rewarding good behavior and disciplining bad behavior and so forth. But I don't know. To me, it seems as if simple is usually better. Common sense usually prevails. and government creating some sort of matrix point system on how they want you to behave in order to get certain prizes and rewards. I don't like it. I just think there's something, and listen, I don't have a doctorate in this, and I know all the experts said that, and I'm just some simpleton guy, but I don't know. I don't like it. And I don't like the formative years, people being trained to behave based off of some government set numbers and little things to fill out where you're just a column and how well have you behaved according to God. I don't, there's something nefarious about it. Part of this also is a system, and this is what happens in big government systems, in which the people who are put in positions of authority, like teachers, for example, are slowly over time having removed from them their authority. A lot of us, I know, old-fashioned, we're in kids. Listen, I can't tell you how many times I was sent to the hallway because I talked too much. If I was a distraction, the teacher like, just get out of here, go to the hallway. Get me out of there, so that the kids who really wanted to learn and not talk were able to do so. Remove the problem. Well, increasingly, districts have taken that authority away from teachers, and instead they replace them with systems. It's all about the system. Instead of having an adult that it is understood, this is the authority in the classroom, and you listen to this authority, and if you don't, this authority has the ability to discipline you, and it's that simple. And if you have to be removed from the class, you get removed from the class. I also understand that once upon a time, if a student got in trouble at school, they also got in trouble at home, and how things have changed to where parents are often very likely to not only not discipline their child for being a problem at school, but they show up at the school and then they demand the teacher be held accountable, and you have a principal or vice principal or superintendent or vice superintendent that doesn't want to hassle with the screaming parent, so they say okay, and they tell them whatever it is they want to hear, and then they try to make good, and all that does is further reinforce to the bad students. The teachers don't actually have any authority over them, so what do we have to do? Well, let's make up some sort of system with numbers. By the way, how many of us really genuinely think that the 10% of students that don't give a rip about whether or not they learn probably have disciplinary problems at home? So they have disciplinary problems in school, that this is a system that is suddenly going to turn them around, further removing the human aspect out of it, and instead reducing them down to a little worksheet where you plug in numbers based off their behavior. Do we really think that that's going to work on these kids? What I imagine it will do is the kids who are already good will be rewarded for behaving the way that they always do anyway. The kids who are bad won't give a crap. In fact, they may take pride in the fact that they get 1 out of 4 stars. And essentially, everyone is going to continue the exact same way, but it's going to be a lot more work. And it's going to be these hard and fast rules of numbers 1 through 4. Now, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe this will turn out to be the answer for everything. And China's just paving the way with their social credit scores, and the Ozark Junior High is going to, utilize that same approach here. And suddenly you're going to have everyone that is learning and coming together, and we're going to see these school scores skyrocket, and I'll be wrong. But I suspect that I won't be. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. I want a greathomeloan.com. You want mediocrity? Well, there's plenty of places you can go. Do it real fast online or go to one of those big old mega outlets where they got a whole bunch of cubicles and you go in and, home loans. Yeah, we got a guy that takes care of that, but he is busy right now and he has an appointment on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Oh, you can't do that? Well, how about the following week? Okay, so that's mediocrity, maybe even just a little bit below par. But if you want a great home loan, the Carrickers, their team, they've been fine-tuning their approach for a very long time right here in the area, and it's why they are so popular amongst those who want it done right. And so often, they are the go-to when we've made the mistake. We're human beings. We're like, well, I grew up with this financial institution, and it's the one I've known, and I've gotten loans in the past, and so I went. And you find 4 weeks into it, things are hung up. What's holding everything up? And on numerous occasions, the Carrickers have talked to us about folks who have come to them because they have been failed by their first go-around, and they managed to navigate it and get it taken care of, oftentimes in a very quick amount of time. That is the focus and dedication you get and the quality of customer service with iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Some of your text messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line regarding this newsleader article about the junior high in Ozark and taking what to me seems it's a similar approach to China's social credit score. It's a behavior credit score of sorts for students. And, good students will get tokens and can trade them in for things and rewards, while their hope is that bad students will see that and say, oh, okay, well, I'll start being good again. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think everyone's going to continue on. I think that bad students are going to continue to be bad students. I don't think this is going to change anything. I think it's just going to be more work, and it is intended or otherwise, perhaps not, indoctrinating young people into become accustomed to government setting up a behavior matrix, rewarding you if you behave in the manner that they want. Some of the text messages, that's it. Teachers and administrators don't want to discipline anymore. And I think that is so often the case. And some of that, it is a cultural issue overall. I understand. If you are a teacher or an administrator, and again, 20, 30 years ago, if you were disciplining a student 9 times out of 10, you had the backing of the parents, whereas now it seems as if it's the opposite. I mean, it may not be that extreme, but it's not uncommon for the parents to come in and demand that the teacher be punished, or how dare my kid this, and, and it becomes a headache, and I get it. I understand that. But still, taking an approach that is going to be effective isn't something that I believe we should dismiss. Will these behavior scores be reflected in student transcripts? Good question. I don't know. More work for teachers. Another texted in. A board made a roar on your rear. Yes, once upon a time, that was the case, where you would get swatted. Or sometimes you got the choice. Do you want suspension or do you want swatting? I will say I was never subject to that. My biggest problem was I always talked too much. I just always got sent out in the hall. I don't even know that I ever got a detention. I don't think I ever did. But I got sent out in the hall quite a bit. Corrupting young people into the surveillance state. And that, again, is when you start reducing people to numbers based on their behavior, and you see countries like China doing it, I don't know. It just seems to me like not the most positive path. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. We still have that government shutdown thing going on, and the belief is Democrats are just waiting until their left-wing base gets out of their system a no kings protest rally thing going on in D.C., which, of course, is just stupid. The rally is stupid. The people involved are oftentimes, but not always, stupid. The fact that they are able, I mean, we've gone through this, the fact that they're able to hold the rallies proves, yeah, there are no kings. I mean, you might as well hold a no unicorn rally because there are no unicorns. And everyone knows it. We're all pretty much on the same page here. The belief here is that Democrats are afraid to reopen the government prior to that event, fearing that they will suffer the backlash from their own support because, as you know, you can never be left enough for the left. And that after D.C. clears out from all the left-wing activists, then they will figure out a way to have some of the Democrats cross over and reopen the government. The area in which they have really been battling is the desire to fund health care for illegal immigrants. And the way that they do this is they do it by way of the different states. So state reimbursements. They will spend a great deal of their dollars, their taxpayer dollars, on illegal aliens, knowing that the federal government will then supplement that. So that's how they get the tax dollars. And Democrats, if you aren't aware, have been running around claiming that, no, we don't fund illegal immigrant health care. What are you talking about? That's not true. Here's the following story. State of Oregon will spend more in its current budget period on free health care for immigrants regardless of legal status, aka illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, than on state police by $500 million or more, according to state officials and budget documents. Oregon officials expect to spend $1.5 billion in combined state and federal taxpayer dollars on a program that offers health care benefits to illegal aliens from 2025 to 2027. They expect to spend only $717 million on Oregon State Police over the same period the document indicates. The state's health agency, the Oregon Health Authority, said in an email to the Daily Caller News Foundation that the state expects to allocate $1.2 billion to the program, originally named Cover All People, and now called the Healthier Oregon program. Oregon lays out budgets in 2-year bienniums. The federal government, that means you and I, will supply 25% of the funding to provide health care benefits to illegal aliens in Oregon. So there's two parts of the story here, of course, and one is that looking at priorities here and state law enforcement, they are prioritizing the violation of the law by welcoming people who come into this country illegally and then forcing taxpayers to pay their medical bills. But this also shows that the claim that media and Democrats have been making that there are no federal tax dollars to go to illegal immigrants getting free health care is a total lie. A total and complete lie. And Oregon, in their own acknowledgement, has demonstrated that to be the case. We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed, streaming live, KSGF.com. The app's a great thing to have. You can stream the show that way. You can send in text messages very easily. You can listen to podcasts, also Spotify, iTunes. And we are streaming on video. You can watch us on YouTube. And that is by way of searching Springfield's Talk 1041. Archived videos, too, so you can go back and you can share things if you'd like to do that. We encourage it, in fact. Just increasingly, can we agree protesters are almost always dumb?
Yes.
It's just dumb. And maybe, I don't know, maybe our culture has romanticized protest. I've never participated in a protest because I've never recognized a time in my lifetime that it was going to do anything meaningful. I think when you had the civil rights marches, those were things, those were events that were part of a cornucopia of different approaches in terms of desegregation and equal rights that all worked together in combination in an effective way that had meaningful results. But in my lifetime, I just don't, I can't think of any protest in which things really changed in a meaningful long-term way because of the protest. And that's, again, my lifetime. I may be thinking, or for not thinking of something, but I just never participate in any protests. Do you participate in protests? Which I don't have a problem with it, by the way.
No, I don't think so.
I just guess I've always felt I've had better things to do. I mean, and when I see protesters today, I'm like, this is what you're doing with your time?
No,
You think of all the productive things you could do, and this is it?
I've been to protests, but I've never participated. Because back in the day, I did the photography for the news department, so I've been to quite a few.
Every Friday when I leave Scramblers, you see about a dozen people outside the VA, and I don't even know. It's I think random signs.
Well, and that really messes with the messaging. It's like if you've got like 8 different things that you're protesting, people are like, now what are they protesting? Everything.
I don't even really think the point for a lot of these is protesting. It's just a social club support group for people who hate Donald Trump.
That's true.
And they want to get together and be around other people who are miserable, because misery loves company, and get together with other people who will just understand how horrible Donald Trump is, and it's more of a social gathering and an excuse to get together than it is about actually doing anything meaningful. Because, now I see the in front of the VA on Republic Road on Fridays, and I don't know, they may be out there every day. I think some of these people don't have jobs or any sort of social life outside of that sort of activity, but I do see some of the Project 2025 signs. I'm like, that this is still a thing these people are going on about? Like, what world are you living in? They do live in a different world. They live in the world of MSNBC, where we just know the world they live in. They're crazies. Portland, protesters rallying against Trump put the city's quirky and irrelevant reputation on display Sunday by pedaling through the streets wearing absolutely nothing. Naked protest. I mean, this is like, why?
Like, who came up with that in the first place?
Well, I think it was done a long time ago because it was taboo. And it really drew attention, and we're not supposed to be doing this. We could be arrested. It was a display of civil disobedience. But now, particularly in Portland, it's like, is this not just normal? See, the thing about these Democrat-run cities, they have run them into the ground to such a degree. People riding around naked on bicycles is the least of the civil disobedient issues that are going on. I mean, when you have people that just randomly stab people or pull down their pants and poop in the middle of a sidewalk or shoot up or have sex out in public. And it's like, really, riding naked? This is supposed to be some sort of brave, attention-grabbing sort of symbolic gesture that is, I mean, it's these people. I think part of it is they're just so lazy and uncreative. You think about protesting and how it really hasn't evolved. These people are just going back to things that their grandparents did in some instances. Like, oh, we'll just recycle that. It's a lot easier than coming up with something new. Now, this was, so here's some of the story. This is from the Associated Press. Crowds that have gathered daily and nightly outside the immigration facility in Oregon's largest city in recent days have embraced the absurd, donning inflatable frogs, unicorns, I don't even know, AXOLOTL. What is that?
I don't know.
I'm not even sure how you pronounce that. It's probably something more people know about than I. Do you need it spelled again?
Yeah.
AXOLOTL. And banana costumes as they...
Seen that animal before.
Okay.
And
Okay. If I saw it, I'd know it.
Mm.
Why? Well, why any of this? And so they wore all these costumes as they face off with federal law enforcement, who often deploy tear gas and pepper balls, which that would be kind of a funny thing to see. People dressed as frogs and bananas being tear gassed, maybe tased. That would be kind of fun. Hey, I'll say this. In all honesty, this is much better than their Democrat comrades who try and murder law enforcement, who try and burn down federal buildings. Riding naked on a bicycle or riding on a bike dressed as a banana is leaps and bounds above. If that's how every Democrat expressed their outrage at the Trump administration, we'd be much better off. Our eyes may not be, because this is the other thing. These people have got... This is the real downside to the Democrat Party not being populated to a significant degree with attractive women. And I think, in total complete fairness, if you were just to take like right-wing women on average, and then you go to a rally with left-wing women on average, you're going to... Let's put it this way. Every person with eyeballs can tell you the difference. If you take women from, again, some pro-abortion, anti-ICE protest, and then you take women from a pro-life patriotic event, and you don't tell people across the political spectrum, all right, now here's visuals of two different, now tell us their political affiliation. Are they on the right or the left? Everyone would know. And while I think it's a benefit to conservatives that the attractive women seem to gravitate towards the more conservative causes, for those that are looking for any sort of visual stimulation, whenever they may attend or observe some sort of left-wing event in which nudity is prevalent, it's bad. It's bad. And if you've ever seen any of these visuals, there's no... In fact, if you had a person show up that was attractive, I think they would immediately get right back in the car and like, no, I don't think I want to be part of this. Thank goodness the people outside the VA aren't doing this. That I can say for sure. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 60. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 83. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 81.
Someone had texted in, if you if you look at the BMI of the Portland biker protesters, it's pretty clear those are rented bikes. So in other words, these are not people that are athletically inclined, that are generally exercising. Sarah said, and this would be, what a treat if you are law enforcement. A number of these Portland protesters are wearing those inflatable costumes, as we mentioned, like bananas and so forth. And if you've not worn one of these, I actually have a couple of them. Not a banana, and not for protest purposes, and not for anything weird. It's Halloween stuff. But they stay inflated because they have a fan. And so there is an intake, and it's generally, well, it's battery operated if it's a costume that you're wearing. Well, there's long been, you can see these viral pranks where people will spray like horrific smelling spray into the intake because you're kind of trapped in those. You usually can't get them off real easily. It's not like taking a hat off or a helmet off. And sometimes you even need assistance because the zipper is in the back. And what a treat for some law enforcement. Apparently, they were spraying pepper spray into the intakes of some of these protesters' costumes.
I'll put some videos up in your must-read headlines.
Man, can you imagine when they realized, hey, you know what would be funny? And what a fun game that would be. That would be a day that I imagine if you are in law enforcement and you're having to deal with all of these lunatics on the left in a city like Portland, as long as you're not a lunatic yourself, but you're a normal person with a good sense of humor, and that day realizing this is what you get to do, that these left-wing morons have encased themselves in these giant bubbles in which they can't easily get out, and you have access to the air intake with your pepper spray. What a fun day that would be. I want to see some of those videos. All right. Did you do weather? Yeah,
Yes.
You did weather. Okay, let's do traffic. Early in the program, I played audio of one of the hosts of The View. Griffin is her last name. What's her first name? Alyssa Farah Griffin. I don't know these people. Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg I can recognize visually, but I don't know the rest of them. And the audio I played is from back in February, I believe it was, and she was talking about Donald Trump and how if he was able to secure the release of those Israeli hostages, she would wear for the day what she said one day on the show, which to me that suggests the entire episode. She would wear a "Make America Great Again" hat. And already people are, of course, Trump supporters clamoring for her to do so. Donald Trump Jr. is sharing the clip of her making the declaration, posting, "Sending this to the top, let's go," encouraging everyone to promote and support it. I mean, how does she not do it? It's such, on one hand, it's a silly thing. But this is where Trump supporters have a sense of humor. They recognize what torture it is for someone on The View. And so just for funsies, they will demand this. They will say, no, now you said. And, of course, ultimately, the average Trump supporter doesn't really care other than knowing how just everything against what they believe. Everything. Her hair might fall out of her head having to wear that hat. Now, one of a few things going to happen. Either you'll just ignore it, pretend she never said it, or she will make a point of, well, I'm a person of my word, like I wish Donald Trump was, like I wish if more lawmakers, and really be a hero for having to do it. But then almost immediately taking it off because of the other View hosts. Okay, you fulfilled your promise. Now go ahead. You've already done more than Donald Trump has ever done in terms of fulfilling promises, that sort of thing. Or maybe she'll wear it the entire show. Be like, nope, I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I think those are really the three options that seem available. These people, they make these declarations never believing this stuff is going to happen. That's what I love about the left. They are so impulsive and emotionally driven that they never actually think through things. And so when she said that, she never believed in 1,000 years Donald Trump would get that done. It's similar to all of these people on the left who, and this goes back prior to Trump. I remember when if Bush gets elected president, I'm leaving the country. If he gets elected a second time, I'm leaving the country. If Trump gets elected, I'm leaving the country. And they say these things en masse because they have so isolated themselves from the real world and from average people. They literally do not know anyone that supported George Bush or supported Donald Trump. No one. Because like a cult, they cut themselves off from everyone. And so in their minds, when they make those threats, it isn't oftentimes because they really mean it or really worry that it will be that bad, but they don't think it's going to happen. And then hilariously, what it really appears to be the one instance of someone actually doing it, Rosie O'Donnell, she can't stop obsessing over Trump. Like, what was the point? Why did you even leave? Because you are even apparently more emotionally disturbed by Trump when you're living in Ireland than when you were living here in the United States. There have been a couple of others like Ellen DeGeneres, but then it turns out, well, she already had that place there anyway. They live there half the time. So, some of these others that appeared as if they actually moved out of the country because of Trump, it really wasn't because of that. But I think Rosie O'Donnell may have been one of those instances where she's like, by gosh, I'm going to do it. But like most miserable people, she can't allow herself to be happy. I was having this conversation with someone the other day about people on the left and how they're miserable that Trump is president, and they think it's because Trump is president. But if you pay attention, it's not like those people were happy when Biden was president. It's not even like they were happy when Barack Obama was president. When did all of the massive riots start taking place? That was during Obama. The George Floyd stuff. And then, of course, the summer of love was occurring. And you had, Kamala Harris and Biden end up, getting swept in post-COVID. And it's not as if the left was suddenly happy. The left to this day, who is it that they're protesting when it comes to anti-Semitism? Kamala Harris can't even have a book tour event without left-wingers yelling at her. I think we have misunderstood, and perhaps people who hate Trump have also misunderstood the chicken and the egg here. They believe that they are unhappy because Donald Trump exists and because he's president. And the reality is they're just inherently unhappy, and that makes them someone who's liberal. Because is liberalism not about always being miserable? Or progressivism? About how horrible the country is? About how awful it is that those people have so much money, except for, the people they like. Oh, about the injustice over here or there. Oh, well, yeah, I bet you're, what was it? There was some story. And, I think it was some celebrity was posting they were happy about something that had happened in their life, and they were being railed on by even supporters because how could you be happy when other people are being deported? It's like they can't stand happiness. They look for the negative in everything. And I suspect that if you took people who believe that they were unhappy because Donald Trump was president and they believe that was the source of their unhappiness, and you had them write down every time they had a negative thought about something, they would find that actually they're negative about everything. They're miserable about everything. And so it isn't Trump that makes them miserable. It's just that that's their state of being. That is how they are about virtually everything. And that, in turn, draws them to the side of liberalism that is all about grievances. I mean, you think about it. People who are positive tend to want to be around positive people. People who are negative tend to want to be around negative people. Negative people don't want to be around cheery people that are seeing the positive in things, that want to focus on the positive, that want to congratulate their friends when they succeed at something. They can't stand that stuff. I'm sure that the culture of the left does take what otherwise oftentimes are normal people and make them unhappy and miserable. But increasingly, I'm believing that people who are just outside of politics, unhappy and miserable, find themselves drawn towards that because birds of a feather flock together. There's always something to complain about. Rich or too rich. Too many people succeeding out there. Country built on slaves. Got racism, police going around killing black people all the time. Even things that are imagined, that are made up in their own minds. It's all about misery. So what a waste of life. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, we got more coming up here. A lot more. I'm going to cram into the rest of the hour. First, though, latest traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 60. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 83. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 81.
Am I the only one that thinks this Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry thing is just gross?
No, did you see those photos of them on the yacht?
Yeah.
Ugh.
I don't know why it's so gross. I mean, it's not like they're that far apart in age. I don't think they are.
I'm going to look.
And this isn't anything new. It was not long after her breakup with Orlando Bloom. I can't believe I'm talking about this, but and they were spotted together, and so they're making out on a yacht, and they probably tipped off paparazzi to take pictures of them, because some of these people, that's everything that is about marketing. Some of the comments, however, are just so hilarious. And some are just calling out the hypocrisy of the two. And many are noting that, Trudeau cares so much about Canada, he's just essentially left to go hang out with his celebrity girlfriend. One person posted Katy Perry and her girlfriend, Justin Trudeau, with a heart. I've noticed a theme here, and the theme for so many of these is mocking the idea that Trudeau has any sort of masculinity about him. Another person posted Katy Perry vacationing on a yacht with her new same-sex partner, Justin Trudeau. Another posting, let's see, Katy Perry and former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spotted kissing aboard a yacht off the coast of Santa Barbara, California. I guess she's back to kissing girls and liking it. He's wearing jeans on a boat. the hypocrisy angle here. Two multimillionaire communist climate activists seen together on a $15 million yacht. That checks out. And Fidel Castro's daughter, Justin Trudeau, and Katy Perry spotted kissing on a yacht. I didn't know Katy Perry was a lesbian. Another person shared on social media. He's just, maybe it's him, because she's not gross. She's she's an attractive gal, but he's just gross. What's their age difference?
13.
13? Yeah, so that's not, because he's what, 50 something and she's early 40s maybe?
Yeah,
or
he is 53.
Okay, and
she
she's
is
40. Yeah.
And you know what? I disagree with you. I also think that she's gross. Remember when she went up into space for, approximately like 12 seconds?
Yeah.
She was like holding the flower and like crying and kissing the ground. I'm like, no.
Okay, so here is the difference between boys and girls. I was talking about looks. And you clearly were talking about the person as a whole.
Yes.
No, he looks gross to me, and I think he is gross. Now, you're right. That whole thing of hers was, no, I agree with you. If you're looking beyond just looks, then she too is gross, but I was just talking about looks. The Democrats are increasingly concerned that they are going to lose a number of races coming up here in the next few weeks that are going to signal that they are in very big trouble and potentially give Republicans a lot of momentum going into the midterms. And one of them is the race for governor in Virginia. And this was a race that not too long ago, the Democrat Abigail Spanberger had easily double-digit points over the Republican, who is the current lieutenant governor, Winsome Earl Sears. And I want to say it was even 18 or 20 point spread at one point, but this has been a consistent, easy double-digit win for the Democrat. But because of a couple of, well, I don't think they're missteps, but issues that have arisen demonstrating how radical Abigail Spanberger is, that gap has closed. A Trafalgar Group poll, which is seen as one of the more reliable polling outlets, conducted a poll between October 8th through the 10th, surveyed 1,066 likely voters, found that if the election were held tomorrow, 47.7% of respondents would vote for Spanberger, while 45.1% would vote for Earl Sears. The poll also found that 5.6% of respondents were undecided. The poll had a 2.9% margin of error, which means that they're statistically tied within the margin of error. While the poll found that Spanberger was leading in the governor's race, 48.9% of the respondents said they would vote for current Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares, while 43.1% said they would vote for Jay Jones, the Democrat nominee for Attorney General in the state. Now, that is a race in which Jay Jones is the Democrat running for Attorney General that it was revealed had in the past sent text messages fantasizing about murdering political opposition and watching his young children die, and also noting that in his belief, if more police officers were murdered, that would be a good thing because that would mean less shootings. If someone like that can get elected attorney general, I don't care how blue the state is or how purple the state is, that is not a good sign for that state. If you can get a majority of people that think that that mindset is appropriate for a top law enforcement official of a state, now this would be a massive win for Republicans and the momentum going again into the midterms, because the lieutenant governor is well, a couple of things. was way behind consistently up until recently, but also she's an immigrant and a woman of color. And so those are things, of course, that Republicans are not supposed to have any sort of relationship with. And it just will continue the changing recognition that increasingly the Democrat Party is the party of white, rich liberals, while the Republican Party is the party of working persons and increasingly people of color as well. There have been a couple of different reasons that Spanberger has lost support in the polling. One, it has to do with forcing girls to be second-class citizens to boys when it comes to sports, when it comes to bathrooms, and Winsome Earl Sears has been very clear, like 80% of Americans, that girls should be protected in sports and in restrooms and in locker rooms, where Abigail Spanberger's like, well, I don't know. I just think the locals should figure it out themselves. Everybody knows what that means. She's trying to not take a stance, which means she supports the 20%. Because if you supported the 80%, you'd have no problem saying this whatsoever. If you supported protecting girls in sports and in the locker rooms, and you were in line with 80% of people, you'd have no problem stating that. So clearly she sides with the 20%. And she has also refused, I believe it was on 5 different occasions during a debate last week, to withdraw her endorsement of the Democrat Attorney General who fantasized about murdering political opposition, fantasized about the political opposition's children dying, and I think the most damaging part of it, probably in terms of public perception, is arguing that more police officers should be murdered in order to cut down on shootings. So this, which the election is coming up, I believe it's November. It could be at the very least, the fact that if it does end up being tight and Abigail Spanberger still wins anyhow, that is going to make some news, and that is going to cause an amount of grave concern for Democrats, particularly in these close races, because the gap was so wide at one point, and because it will be seen as a race that the Democrat should have won or should have easily won but did not because of 2 issues: transgenders and crime and police, that are still issues out there within the general public. And so it's not like these are fringe issues in the sense that, oh, well, it's not something that is relevant to the rest of the country. It is only relevant to Virginia. These are issues that virtually every Democrat recognizes that they are probably going to have used against them. If you have a Democrat and a Republican is running against them, and the Democrat, particularly as an incumbent, has ever been, posting anything anti-police, which there's a good chance that will be the case, or has posted anything that is in defiance of girls' rights and women's rights in favor of transgenders, which universally almost all Democrats have, they know that stuff's going to be used against them. And if this race is close or the Republican does win in Virginia, that is going to tell them that it is not boding well for them, that this is not an issue that the American people have changed their mind on over the last year or so. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air wanted to read a review from Reagan. Foreman maintains my HVAC system. They come out twice per year to keep me cool in the summer and warm in the winter. The technicians are always so nice and professional. And, one of the best ways to keep your heating system running for years is to get a regular professional maintenance on your unit. And the Foreman team, they can help you out with that. If you haven't flipped over to heat yet, now is the time to call Russell for a quick fall preventative maintenance visit. To schedule your fall tune-up, just reach out to Russell today. You can schedule that appointment at foremanmechanical.com, or always, you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There is an article in the Daily Caller. Former Dem rep floats fix other than National Guard. Even Gutfeld wonders why it hasn't happened yet. And this is Harold Ford Jr., the Democrat contributor that is oftentimes on the 5. And I'll just be honest with you, he's one that I'm good with him because I disagree with him a lot. But he actually he comes to his own conclusions, as opposed to if you watch the 5. I can't even watch it when Jessica Tarlov's on there anymore. It's just it's as if she cuts and pastes to print out things that she reads on social media. It's just all the same cliches. You know exactly what it is she's going to say. But Harold Ford Jr., he has thought out ideas, and he is more than willing to give credit where credit's due. And he has been a supporter of Trump utilizing National Guard to support local law enforcement. He makes a point that is an accurate point, and that is, but that can't be the final, solution. That can't be the ultimate approach to this. Yes, that is needed in some areas to get it under control, but there needs to be a more permanent fix to this problem that doesn't involve National Guard. And I agree with that. And he says what needs to happen is there needs to be legislation that Republicans need to have a crime bill, just like a crime bill that was crafted in the 90s, and there should be bail reform, and there should be all of these other things. And he just doesn't understand why it is that hasn't happened. Now, that sounds reasonable, because his rationale for calling for a national crime bill is a solid one, and that is, hey, National Guard cannot be the end solution here, can't be the permanent solution. The problem, however, with having a national crime bill, which it may set some standards in terms of cashless bail and so forth. I suspect just on a federal level, I don't know that they can really, on a congressional level with federal law, dictate what states can do in terms of individuals being arrested for felonious crimes or even local. But crime bills ultimately are going to be about money. And money is not the problem here. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be a need for money, but the approach is the problem. If you have people, let's use Chicago as an example, that run Chicago in a way that results in criminals feeling as if they are the ones ultimately in control, and criminals recognizing that it doesn't matter how many times they get arrested, they're going to be walking right back out on the street. It doesn't matter how many more prosecutors you hire. It doesn't matter how many raises you give people or retention bonuses you hand out. If the law and order system in that jurisdiction operates in the same way, you're going to get the same results. It's the people running the cities that are the problem. Washington, D.C. is a perfect example of it. The approach was different. Now, you did have additional resources, but the additional resources were used in a way that Washington, D.C. does not use its current resources, and that is just cutting all this crap out and saying enough is enough. I understand the instinct for needing some sort of crime bill on a national level, but unless it is a crime bill that essentially dictates to states and local jurisdictions an approach that requires them to be so tough on crime when it comes to charging individuals and punishing individuals that it diminishes the crime, then the crime bill is only going to just give more money to people who run things poorly, which will allow them to do more of it. And again, I just don't know that you can have legislation from a federal level that micromanages local law enforcement and when I say law enforcement, I'm not talking just police, but prosecutors, because this is where the big problem is. As long as you have these left-wing lunatics out there voting in prosecutors that George Soros funds, no crime bill in the world is going to fix those problems. And that's the unfortunate reality of why, or at least one of the reasons, that so much of this is so difficult to deal with. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. U.S. District Court Judge LaShonda Hunt, a Biden-appointed federal judge in Illinois, ordering the Department of Homeland Security and ICE to dismantle a protective security fence protecting federal immigration processing facility in Broadview, Illinois, a facility that has been the site of violent protests and anti-ICE riots since the launch of Trump's Operation Midway Blitz. And so once again, offering aid and comfort to the enemy. The relationship between ICE and the Democrat Party is the same as the Klan and the Democrat Party during Reconstruction era. It's working hand in hand, assisting one another to use violence and intimidation to try and get your way. Glenn Beck